Sometimes expectation and reality don't quite line up. When Snipe was revealed, the numbers looked completely insane with Bleed Bow. I was easily able to hit the damage cap. Or at least, I would have been able to, if it worked identically to the Asalium helmet. And also didn't have any penalties. Which was an overly ambitious assumption to say the least. However, that doesn't mean Bleed Bow is bad. And so, today I wanted to talk about Bleed Bow Champion, with a min-max POB to explore, is this something you might want to play? Spoiler alert, the answer is yes, you might want to play it, but no, it's not so overpowered that you're going to feel like you're compelled to play it. So, first question, why are we Champion instead of Gladiator? And the very simple answer here is, Champion's just really good right now. Having Fortitude means you get free fortification, which significantly reduces the damage you take. Furthermore, Unstoppable Hero and several of the other small nodes combine to make it really easy to scale a high amount of evasion and armor rating. Assuming that you're able to steal Gratuitous Violence, that's most of your damage already taken over from Gladiator. You'll have to make up MAME somewhere. Sure, you lose 10% increased Fizz taken, and sure you lose 10% more Fizz while at max frenzies, but there isn't really anything else here that's all that impactful, aside of Arena Challenger for a bit of mapping speed. So overall, Champion felt like the easy choice as opposed to Gladiator. Coming over to the tree, this is a little bit more experimental. I grabbed a few trees from PoE Ninja, played around with them, and tried to adjust for the new masteries. What I wanted is something that had plenty of damage for bossing, while also having well-rounded defenses. What I came up with was coming over here for speed and spell suppression via Quick Step. Coming up here to get another 15% suppression from the Evasion Mastery, and of course Magebane, since we have a fair amount of dex. Next up, I decided to explore new masteries, and found that the Armor Mastery for 1% max res is genuinely excellent. Of course, you want to be over here for Resolute Technique, even if this means the tree is stretched in a somewhat weird way. Then, for the rest of your damage, you want Clusters. Specifically Battle Hardened for evasion and armor, and Ironbreaker for raw damage. For the small clusters and the medium clusters, well, ultimately I abandoned the small cluster. It felt easier to just anoint Charisma, as opposed to using a small for RMR, or coming over to something like Revelry for non-curse aura effect. Now, when it comes to the gear, this is a fairly min-maxed POB, not something you're just going to be able to throw together. Right now, the bow is very good to say the least. Not quite T1, still, it's a quite rare mod, and then multi-modded for the rest. I would call this achievable, but certainly not inexpensive. Maloney's mechanism seems pretty good here. You get to trigger socketed bow skills, allowing you to automate passive effects, such as maintaining frenzy charges via spamming frenzy. For helmets, I wanted to go for armor evasion bases. The nice thing about armor evasion bases is you get to use both the armor and the evasion masteries that say if your gear has X on it. Plus, you get spell suppression, at least everywhere except for the helmet, since the helmet didn't end up needing it. Now, this very heavily modded item is a lightning coil, but also has Snipe in it. The reason that it's so heavily modded to have Snipe in it is because the Snipe gem isn't in PoB, at least as of the recording of this video. Grants level 20 Snipe skill, socketed skills deal 40% less damage, and socketed non-channeling bow skills are triggered by Snipe. In the configuration, I only have 4 stages here, because I wanted to simulate the effect of a Snipe gem, not the version of Snipe on Asalium. Or Asalium? I don't know. Tell me down in the comments which pronunciation's right. And then, going back to my gear, I of course grabbed spell suppression wherever I could, Ulnatol's Vow to get even more damage on the chest piece. This is why I say that expectations and reality don't quite line up. I thought with Ulnatol's Vow, I'd be hitting DPS cap. Instead, I'm doing a pretty respectable 13 mil. For a dot, that's not bad, especially since that dot lasts around 10 seconds. However, you can see that it is still a pretty big chunk of your damage. Though 10 mil bleed that lasts 10 seconds is going to be perfectly fine, so if you don't think you'll be able to get the Ulnatol's Vow, honestly the build's certainly viable with a different amulet. Then for rings, just some kind of basic stuff. Rizlatha's Coil of course greatly increases your damage, since you don't need to worry too much about the min rolls. I guess that's not quite as true in a case like this where you're using Snipe and you won't be constantly spamming your attack. even then, the wider range doesn't seem to be too punishing from my experience, though I'll admit I only played the old version of Bleed Bow, not the new one. I'm missing a flask because I forget why I was just tinkering with it and it got deleted. Have I mentioned this isn't a build guide, this is just me spitballing ideas. And then of course you've got the clusters, the Watcher's Eye, all the fun stuff you'd expect here. Speaking of other things that I was tinkering with and never fixed, yeah, I'm missing a little intelligence. That wouldn't be too hard to fix on gear. You probably just grab it via your cluster jewels or something like that. And so for anyone wondering, can you play Bleed Bow with Snipe? Yes, absolutely. Should you be a Gladiator? Probably not. I think I'd go Champion. I really like the defenses here. And while I thought about what if I'm Glad, but I just steal Fortitude, the issue with that is I want to steal both Inspirational and Fortitude. The last question. What about Adrenaline? You gain Adrenaline when you fall below 50% life, which is really, really strong, and also super, super annoying, so not something that I want to do personally. If an enemy hits me and happens to knock me into Adrenaline, it's a great way to boost my damage, and I'd be perfectly happy to have that, if it happened. But I'm not going to be doing some sort of self-damage shenanigans just to proc it, because honestly, that's super annoying. In terms of defenses, having endurance charges or not doesn't really matter all that much. It's a little bit of mitigation, it's a little bit of damage. A lot of the time you'll have them from Warcry, some of the time you won't. I was pretty conservative on Pride, it goes up to 15 mil. Again, I prefer to be conservative. Whatever settings might matter here. So let's simulate Adrenaline quickly. There you go, about 14 mil DPS. You get a little tankier, you heal up. It's a pretty good time. And for anyone who is concerned about this abysmal attack rate, that's for Puncture itself. What you want to look at is Snipe. It's still not great. It's still going to be a 1.5 second channel on your Puncture. However, a 1.5 second Puncture for something that effectively one-shots any boss in the game seems like a pretty fair exchange to me. It's not like you're going to be attacking twice very often, since the bleed does around 130 million total damage over its entire duration. And then, just before I wrap up, you're clearing with Split Arrow. It has a mil DPS. This should be fine. Remember, you don't have to full channel your Snipe or anything. You could always just Puncture with a single stack, maybe 2 stacks, if you wanted to nuke a boss really quickly. I guess technically that simulates 2 and 4, but same analogy holds. I know after seeing the reveal and the discussion of the Snipe gem, there were a lot of questions about if Bleed Bow Glad was back. And I wouldn't say it's quite back, since all you really get from Glad is the ability to save money on not buying a gratuitous violence. Though Bleed Bow Champion could very well be a build that a lot of people will enjoy. This is a very min-maxed example. It's not appropriate for League Start at all, and it is a Theorycraft. So there isn't going to be a POB down in the description. Instead, there's going to be a POB in my Discord. Just follow the link down in the description. Read the rules in the rules channel. This is very important. Then react to give yourself both the community and notification role. After that, go over to the build link archive, and you should be able to find the POB no problem. And so with that said, I'm curious. What other things have you been theorycrafting for 3.21? Anything involving Mana Forged Arrows? Maybe one of the new Vol skills? Or were you also thinking about Bleed Bow? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And of course, before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. If you're looking for something else to watch, you can always go with YouTube's recommendation that's on screen right now, or you can check out my thoughts on starters for 3.21, some great builds from 3.20, and the reworked Breach and Abyss items. All of those will be up in the card and down in the description. Thanks for watching, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.